Hey guys, thanks for watching. Today, we're going to be talking about my confidence flies. Now, these are flies that I never leave home without, and they're hands down the most used flies in my box. There are so many flies on the market these days, and to someone new to the sport, it can be very stressful trying to figure out which fly to throw, especially if you're still trying to learn to match the hatch or still trying to build up your fly box. If you're new to this, give these flies a shot. These flies have brought me a lot of success over the years. So, we're going to dive into this box, and I'm going to show you guys my confidence flies. So, we're going to start with nymphs. These right here are pheasant tail nymphs. I've got this in black, and I've also got this in your standard pheasant tail nymph. I tie these on a jig hook, that way I can either Euro nymph with them, or what I usually do the most is run them as a dry dropper. This is for a little bit heavier nymph rig, and then I tie these lighter bead ones for a dry dropper. Pheasant tails work great around here, and I mostly throw them in the summers. Then we've got sow bugs. Sow bugs are fantastic all year round. I tie them with a little bit of flash on there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's see. Well, I tie them with a little bit of flash on the back, and they work really well. I was fishing just last weekend, and I can't tell you how many were on the back side of this rock. This rock I picked up was just crawling with sow bugs. So always make sure you've got sow bugs in your box, especially for the Weber and the Provo River. Next, we've got a Rainbow Warrior. I love using the Rainbow Warriors for any backcountry fishing I do. Whether that's still water or fishing rivers. It's a flashy fly, it grabs attention, and it works really well. I also use this as a dry dropper during the summer for a lot of my hopper fishing that I do. Next, we've got Peragon Nymphs, and when I'm not running a Rainbow Warrior, I'm almost always running this green Peragon Nymph. It's got a very slim body to it, so it sinks really fast, and it's a great fly as a dropper when you're running a dry dropper rig. Love this fly. I use it all the time. Then we've got midges. Midges work almost every time of the year. They're fantastic. Never not have a midge in your fly box, because no matter what water you're fishing, there's always going to be midges in it most of the time. Then for the more spring conditions, we've got San Juan worms. San Juan worms are great when the water clarity is not very clear, because usually around springtime when you've got runoff, it starts to cut into those banks, a lot more erosion happens, and that's going to flush a lot more worms into the river, and those fish are just going to be feasting on them. So I love fishing San Juan worms during spring, but you can use them year round as well. Then for more still water fishing, I got some balanced leeches. These just have that little tiny jig hook right there. I tie these in a variety of sizes as well, and they work great for still water fishing. I usually fish them under an indicator, where I then just cast it out and I bob that indicator up and down as I kind of jerk it back into shore, and that's going to wiggle that leech underneath that indicator and get that nice leech-like movement. Love these guys. They work really well. Make sure you got a variety of color and sizes in your box. Then let's get into dry flies. So I found this dry fly. This is called the Quigley's Cripple. A fly shop recommended it to me about a year ago, and it has worked great. Anytime that I've had like picky fish that are rising, but I just can't figure out what they're eating, I throw this fly and they hit it almost every single time. It works amazing. I have fished this more than any other dry fly I have in my box, and I am constantly tying them because they work so well. Then we've also got a caddis fly. Caddis flies, especially on the Provo and the Weber River, there are huge hatches of caddis flies. I always make sure that I've got them in my box and I've got a variety of sizes. Sometimes I even run a dry dropper where I have a big caddis fly for the front, but then I have about 12 inches behind it a smaller caddis fly. That helps me see the smaller caddis, and you never know which one the trout's going to hit. Then we've got a stimulator pattern. Stimulator patterns are great for backcountry fishing, and just all fishing in general. They imitate a lot of different patterns, but I love them because they float so well. So it's great to run a little dry dropper on it. You can have that little nymph just right off the back right there, and that's a great rig to run during the summer. Then let's get into hoppers. So I love fishing hoppers. This is probably one of the funnest flies to catch fish on. They're big, they float well, you can run a dry dropper off them really easy, and you don't have to worry about the dropper sinking the front fly. And nothing's more exciting than catching a big fish on a big fly. I fish these mostly in the summer months, and yeah, a lot of fun to fish. Now let's get into streamers. So this right here is one of my favorite all-time streamers. It's just a little tiny squirrel tail. These guys work really well. This is what I like throw on when I just want to catch a lot of fish. It produces lots of fish of a variety of sizes just because it's like not a very big streamer, but you can fish it with very quick pulls, very short but fast pulls, and it kind of gives it a nice wiggling in the water. It just looks really good. It's got a lot of movement to it, and I've caught some really big fish on this fly. But when I'm specifically targeting larger fish, or maybe the water clarity is a little bit darker, I've got an articulated version of that same fly. So this just has 2 hooks on there and it's articulated in the middle. And this is just a little beefier, a little more meat on the bone. And I've caught some really nice fish on this fly as well. So yeah, with that said, let's get into the advice that I received that really helped me really understand fly fishing. And that was, don't blame the fly, blame yourself. Most of the time you're not catching a fish on a fly when you're first learning isn't because of the fly. You're probably throwing the right fly. It's just you don't know how to fish that fly. There could be a number of reasons. Either you're throwing it where there's no fish, or your fly is going to be like too high up in the water column, or you've got your fly too deep in the water column. There's a lot of reasons why you might not be catching fish. So then to waste all your time fishing, changing flies, you're just wasting your time, because the more your fly is in the water, the more chances you have of catching a fish. So my recommendation is, and this is a little bit of a challenge for you guys that are just starting out, is take a pheasant tail nymph and go fish it and don't change your fly. Only fish this pheasant tail nymph. I mean, if you're tying on like 2 flies, you could tie like a rainbow warrior with it. But just fish that pheasant tail nymph and keep fishing it till you catch a fish. Learn to fish the fly, because if you keep changing it, it's just going to waste your time. And if you guys aren't from Utah, or maybe you're fishing in like a different area, because these are like flies that I mostly use in Utah, maybe these flies won't work in the area you're in. My recommendation is go down to your fly shop and ask one of the workers, what is your favorite fly to fish this time of year? And whatever fly they give you, take that fly out and only fish that fly until you catch a fish. Learn to fish that fly, because you're going to learn a lot more sticking with that fly than you would changing to a whole bunch of flies. Once you get better at fly fishing, that's when you can actually start playing around, start matching the hatch, and start changing your flies more. But you want to develop confidence in the fly you're fishing, and the only way to do that is to just keep fishing that fly until you catch a fish. I promise it is going to teach you a lot, especially while you are new to fly fishing and you're still kind of learning the fundamentals. And for those that are still learning to cast, one of my favorite ways to get good at casting, it's also the funnest way, is take a streamer, go out on the river, and fish it. You can't tangle a streamer very easily, and it's really hard you can't really mess up fishing a streamer. All you gotta do is cast it out to the other side, look for pockets, fallen logs, stuff like that. Cast it out and just strip it, jig it, act like you're playing with a cat. Flick your rod tip around if you have to. Just make it look like that is a fish that's trying to get away, and that's going to spark the predatory instinct of the trout, and odds are you're going to get a fish on it. So streamers end up catching a little bit larger fish in my experiences. Some of the bigger fish I've caught have all been on streamers, but it is a great way to learn to cast, because you're just casting so much fishing this fly, and then you don't have to worry about it tangling. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check this one out right here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.